Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy glory, acting as your lead blocker to fantasy excellence, making all your football-related fantasies come true. I, of course, am your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself, and we're here for the Week 8 recap and early Week 9 Waiver Wire show. Last week, I railed about how it wasn't a very good week of football. I stand by that not very hot take. This week was different. This was an exciting week of football. Last year we had to, it was like, pulling whatever. It was tough to find our studs of the week. We just couldn't do it. It was like, okay, he did 20 fantasy points. He was okay. This week we got like 8 guys, maybe 9 guys in our studs of the week pile. And that's always super, super fun. We're looking forward to it. We're actually starting a couple minutes early, which is unprecedented. Like I said, the Wolf's with me. Wolf, how you doing?
Doing good. I'm in a bunch of fantasy battles. Most of this year, I haven't had these type of Sundays that truly come down to that 1 or 2 player on Monday Night Football. Either I've blown the other team out or I've had a couple losses where I just didn't have a shot. So it's kind of fun to remember that rush, but then it's also like, oh, great, I'm not going to sleep for 2 straight nights. Yay, can't wait for that. It's of all the players, too, it's Nick Chubb, and that's like the worst kind of player to be waiting for because they just pound you. And I have I think a 16-point lead or something like that where Chubb could definitely get it. He might fall short, but either way, he's going to get close. He's going to pound me. So I've got that nice anxiety riding me right now. But otherwise, a fun Sunday for sure. A.J. Brown was great. Yeah. Excited to talk through these early studs, all the stats that matter. And then, of course, that Week 9 waiver wire, folks. While we're out there, too, before we get started, those of you that are with us early, you can be so helpful by getting us that thumbs up. Or if you're catching the replay, I know this is one of the shows that typically does really well. Awesome. Whether you're here live or you're catching the replay, we do go live right after Red Zone every Sunday. Thanks so much for being here with us. That thumbs up button, if you enjoy the show, will help us get out to more people. I say we dive right in, Truth.
Let's get into it. Studs of the week, like we said, these guys, every single one of these guys would have run away with stud of the week last week, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But this week there was really, really good company, and we're going to start with a couple guys from the 7-0 Eagles. Jalen Hurts threw for 285 yards and 4 scores. This was a rare outing for him where it didn't all come in the first half, although a lot of it came in the first half. If we had fantasy numbers just for the first half, I would be surprised if Jalen Hurts wasn't the best quarterback in fantasy. He just does it all in the first half. But anyway, 285 yards on 19 for 28 passing for 285 and 4 touchdowns. Strangely, only 2 rushes for 10 yards. Didn't matter. Still put up like in the 35 to 40 point fantasy area. Just an outstanding game. And they're playing the Steelers. The Steelers stink. This game went the way it was supposed to go. His wide receiver number 1, A.J. Brown, the guy they brought in to be that guy. He is that guy. He was targeted 11 times. Only caught 6 of them, but he scored 3 touchdowns on those for 156 yards. In fact, had the first 3 Eagles touchdowns of the game. It was incredible. Both guys worthy of consideration for stud of the week.
Career high receiving yards for A.J. Brown, too, as well as his first time having 3 touchdowns. A monster day. In truth, you're just asking, I wonder where his first half points versus second half points. Scott Barrett, one of our legendary guests that comes on a lot. He's averaging the most first half points by nearly 10 a game. He's over 20 points for on average. Just in the first half, he puts up over 20 fantasy points on average. And he's the quarterback 18 in second half points.
That made me look really smart.
It really did. He did all the calculations. So impressive stuff there. Alvin Kamara definitely in the running. He's had a productive season over his last 4 weeks. Had not found the end zone until this week, where he has 1 rushing touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns, scoring in bunches, 996 in the air. Great receiver one day for that, but then also adding 62 yards and a touchdown on 18 carries, a workhorse load for Alvin Kamara, and man, did he deliver. Huge day for him.
Can we talk about Derrick Henry for a second?
Good God.
32 rushes, 219 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the Titans' Week 8 win over the hapless Texans. This was just one of those kind of steamroller type games. We've seen this before from him. We haven't seen it a ton this year, but we know he's got it in him. Man, that was brutal.
I'm trying to think of the last time there's been a player that just single-handedly dominates against a franchise like this. Henry averages almost 200 yards and 2 touchdowns against this team. I think over his last 4 games, I think he's averaging 35 fantasy points or something like that against the Texans. It is just insane. And the fact is, it wasn't even the highest scoring running back performance today somehow. Christian McCaffrey, the triple crown, the reason I'm actually alive in many of my matchups. 18 carries, 94 yards and a score. That's nice. 8 catches, 55 yards, and an additional touchdown. Great. And he can pass. We know we'll see everybody quoting that Friday Night Lights one, but also throwing a touchdown as well. The Triple Crown, I know Scott Hansen said it's like the first time, I forget the exact year, but man, I think only 2 other people in history have ever done this. It's incredible. Well done, Christian McCaffrey. Whew, what a stud.
Nice to see his change of location, huh?
Doesn't he look so good in the colors too? Like
he does. He looks like, I mean,
he immediately fits perfectly. Oh, it's such a great.
And it's been pointed out not by people smarter than me. We haven't even seen this guy in the same offense as Debo really yet. So I mean, like this is, and Brandon Ayuk looks good. Jimmy actually looked pretty. I mean, he did have at least one pass, as he does every game, where you're just like, holy shit, Jimmy, what are you doing? But but he made a really nice pass to George Kittle back of the end zone late in the game. That was a really nice ball. So we'll see. I mean, they got a lot of weapons, dude. They're only 4-4 now. But I mean, but that division's kind of wide open.
When that defense gets healthy too, they're good. Yeah, I think that team can definitely make noise. Interesting point on Debo. Like, I'm not to exasperate this, but it's going to be incredible real life wise. Maybe McCaffrey takes a slight little hit, but I do think this type of usage, like 7 to 8 targets, 15 to 20 carries every single week, and maybe an occasional trick play. Like, this is beautiful. This is exactly what you wanted. Even when Debo returns, I imagine he'll have an insane workload. So wheels up, baby. This is
and like the Niners are deep too. Jeff Wilson's good. Like he is
good.
And
he might get traded though.
He might. That's true. But they just got a lot of pieces, man. Yes. Anyway, speaking of which, when Zeke doesn't play, we talked about how Tony Pollard does. The Wolf had him ranked number 6, I believe, going into the week, which maybe was not high enough, come to find out. 14 rushing attempts, 131 yards. That's a ho-hum 9.5 yards a clip. 3 touchdowns, added a catch for 16 yards, and just looked nasty the whole game. He really did. I mean, what 14 rushes? 14 rushes, 130 yards? Man, you'd think they'd have been feeding him more, but whatever, it worked.
He's so damn efficient every time he touches the rock. Now, he's only made 2 starts for Zeke in his career.
He's been incredible, right?
Over 30 points in both of them. The guy's a monster. At a certain point, we just have to turn the keys over. And of course, after the game,
Jerry Jones says no, though.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to go as Zeke goes after the game, after when he's asked about Tony Pollard. How stuck in your fucking ways can you be? I get you gave the guy an idiotic contract in terms of Zeke, but let's get over it and let's feed an absolutely electric Tony Pollard the way that Travis Etienne, not in the running for stud of the week. We'll get to him when we get to running backs, but man, the way he's being deployed, that's how we should be seeing usage go for Tony Pollard, in my opinion.
We talk about how stuck in your ways is Jerry Jones. What is he, like 85 years old? Like probably pretty stuck in his ways.
Probably pretty stuck, yeah. Seriously. I mean, and it's just crazy that we were like going through some of these studs, and then Tony Pollard, we know is a stud when he starts, and then also in the 30-point club, Donta Foreman doing it all on the ground too. 23 attempts, 112 yards, 3 touchdowns, just dominating the snap share, the workload. He was in for 54 of like the 70 total plays, and every down monster on early downs, goal line, even the 2-minute drill, nearly all the snaps. He is a beast. Donta Foreman, man, maybe a low-end running back. Like, I can't say low-end running back one in this offense.
We've always liked him, though.
And always loved the player. He's going to see probably 20. There's no way they go back to Chuba after this. So I think you can feel great about him as a running back, too. And this offense has some life with P.J. Walker, with the coaching staff returned over. Like DJ Moore's re-engaged. I like what I'm seeing out of the Carolina Panthers, at least for Foreman's value, and DJ Moore as well.
Rounding out the studs last and maybe least, just because this is such a loaded category, Tua, 29 out of 36, 382 yards and 3 touchdowns.
At least.
I mean, it might be. He might be.
I think it is. I think
honestly, of all the guys on this list, I'm kind of like, ho-hum. But I mean, he had an incredible game.
We always start the list after the 1 p.m.s because we got to get, some talking points down. After 4 o'clock, that's when McCaffrey, Henry, like all these guys just came in and started battering teams. Oh,
we already had 5 or 6 guys after the 1 o'clock games, and usually like we're struggling to get that many total. And like I said, they're almost never as good as these guys are. It's like, 7 catches, 116 yards and a touchdown. And it's like, Monsters. This is like, that doesn't even sniff.
This is one of those days that a lot of us are going to be in those like fantasy haymaker matchups where it's just 30-pointer, 28-pointer, like just going back and forth. These are the week's fantasy. This is why we do it. And some of our hearts are going to be ripped out and it's going to be brutal, but the wins are going to feel amazing. And we're alive, baby. This is what I'm most alive.
This is how you know you're alive.
Fantasy haymakers.
So who's your stud of the week?
I got to give it to McCaffrey just for personal reasons, like the versatility of it, the fact that he's on a lot of my teams too. But 3 touchdowns in 3 different ways, like I think he also ended up scoring the most points if you do PPR wise, at least.
It's very close. It's like there's like 5 guys within like a point of each other.
Every single one, yeah, 38, 39.
Right.
Like
38 was 38.3 was a recurring number in my league. I would probably, I see why you would say McCaffrey, and I might even lean him too, but it's such a big dick game from Derrick Henry. I don't know.
All of them more. I mean, what a day. What a day for the fantasy scoring, man. Great stuff. I know we haven't really been doing dud of the week. I'll just toss this out there. The entire Raiders offense, that was fucking awful.
Feel free to toss that out because it was abysmal.
So I think you got to give if we had to pick a player to give it to, it's probably Derek Carr. 101 scoreless yards, 1 pick. Brutal. In a matchup that had shootout all over it, and the Saints sure did their part. Awful, awful day from Carr. And we'll talk about the receivers and what happened there. Just awful. So, and Josh Jacobs.
I concur with you on dud of the week being the Raiders as a whole, but I disagree. I disagree about it being Carr. I would give it to Devontae Adams. I think a lot more is expected out of him than Derek Carr. They were both terrible, but I feel like Adams' stat line was like 1 catch, 5 yards.
No Lattimore either. Wide receiver ones have been going nuts against the
Renfro,
Saints.
Nothing. Adams, nothing. Jacobs, nothing. Carr, like less than nothing. Take your pick. I would lean towards Adams, maybe even Jacobs. He was so terrible too. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll cover those guys more as we dive into our
talk about them in negative stat trends.
About 25 a year with us. It would mean the world. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please do consider that thumbs up button helping us grow. It means the world. Let's dive into some quarterbacks.
All right, positive quarterback stuff. Justin Fields, 17 out of 23 for $151, 2 touchdowns, no picks. They did lose by 20 to the Cowboys. He also had 8 carries for 60 yards and 1 touchdown. They were not really super in this game, but Fields still managed to put up a respectable fantasy day.
He had a great fantasy day, his most of the season in the hardest matchup he's had so far, too, against the Cowboys. The next 3 matchups are all bottom 5 defenses and points allowed to quarterbacks. He has now had a top 12 performance in 4 straight weeks. We got to accept it, folks. We're going to talk about him when we get back to waiver wires, but he's a low-end QB1. Yes, Konami, code is back and alive. Great to see these performances from Fields, who just like eyeball test wise seems more comfortable dialing up plays that fit to his strengths more. Really, really positive. Also, the best game we've seen from Dak so far, fantasy wise, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. The big thing was 34 yards and a touchdown on the ground. They've talked about wanting to use him more as a rusher. 5 rushes is not crazy, but it's not nothing either, especially when this offense seems so much more pass resistant. They're really leaning on the defense, not like the years we've seen in the past with Dak and Kellen Moore. And so if that's going to flip, Dak definitely gets his ceiling lower, but the rushing upside, if he can continue this, might help buoy out that offset.
Kyler Murray, 30. And look, these guys didn't even come close to making the stud list, and these are big games. Kyler Murray, 31 out of 44 for 326, 2 touchdowns, also 2 picks in the Cardinals. 34-26 loss to the Vikings. The Vikings, who are now, what are they, 6-1, maybe 7-1?
6-1.
Is it just me, or do they only play bad teams? And by the way, they're playing the Commanders next week, just along those lines.
Just continue.
Anyway, Murray also had 36 yards on 6 carries. Again, didn't get the job done. I think the Cardinals are kind of a train wreck. He was not helped out by a couple drop passes as well from guys maybe you wouldn't even expect. But good fantasy game for Murray. Like we said, he had 25 fantasy points.
Yeah, on the other side, Kirk Cousins, not a bad day, 232-2, but also scored on the ground. And that's where it's a little sketchy. It's a little bit of a May performance more than a good one. 24 points, got the job done. You'd be very pleased with that. But this doesn't feel like a sustainable when Cousins scores on the ground. It's like, that's not happening every week. So good fantasy outcome, but probably not what you can bank on most weeks with him.
Marcus Mariota, I liked your quote when I said something about the finish of this game. You said that game was way more exciting than it had any business being, or something like that.
Seriously.
Marcus Mariota, 22 fantasy points, 20 of 28, 253 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 6 rushes, 43 yards. Another very respectable fantasy game. And I don't know if you saw the end of that, but 34-28 Falcons. Amazing long pass to, I think it was DJ Moore. Long pass. Ties it up 34-34 with 12 seconds on the clock. The Panthers taunt 15 yards, tacked onto the extra point, misses the extra point. Falcons win in overtime. Holy hell, I'd be so pissed.
Pinheiro, talk about dud of the week. I know nobody uses him fancy. Real life dud of the week, though. Also missed like a 35-yarder in overtime. Oh, my God. So, just a gut-wrenching loss.
He's no Young Hoku.
No automatic. Our boy, Young Hoku, for sure.
Who won the game, by the way.
100%. Andy Dalton, another nice day. 17 fantasy points. Nothing insane, but 229 yards, 2 touchdowns. Seems to really be cementing himself as the starter. And this offense likes to chuck, so he could have some real streamability during these bye week stretches here.
Going to negatives, we already talked about him, but we're going to talk about him again. Derek Carr, 15 out of 26 for 101, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Marshawn Lattimore not even going against him here. And he was actually pulled late in the game for, wait for it, Jarrett Stidham. I think that's all. I think that's my mic drop line right there.
Yeah, Stidham.
See you later.
See ya. Let's send the crowd home unhappy. Stidham.
Right.
Kenny Pickett, 25 of 28, so a good completion percentage.
Wow.
How do you do with it? 191 yards and a pick. No touchdown. A widely mediocre, actually useless stat line. Even though the completion percentage looked good, it was boring, it was dull, and it was fantasy uselessness.
Malik Willis, who we were both excited to see, a lot of people were. He threw 10 times, completed 6 of them, 55 yards, and a pick. Derrick Henry did everything. They really didn't need the guy to do much. He almost scored. He was knocked out of bounds maybe at the 1. He had a shot. I don't really think we can tell too much, except that they clearly did not trust him to throw the football. And why bother when you got a tank on your team that's going to run for 250 yards because he does every single time you face these guys?
Exactly. There's not going to be too much to glean from this one, given that, like you just said, if they can run it 35 times, they're going to put it down their throat. Me and CJ said that on the pregame show today. We warned people don't go too crazy with Malik Willis, and came to fruition there. Matthew Stafford also belongs on this list for the 4 p.m.s. 22 completions, 33 attempts. Looked like he was off to a good start, fresh out the bye. Really only racked up 187 in a TD. Sure, he played better ball and didn't turn the ball over, but 16, 17 fantasy points when you started. He just started hot. He had 16 and ended up finishing with 17. So it just felt really, really underwhelming today.
Yeah, the Rams looked really good for like a quarter and a half.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then they didn't score any more points. Running backs. Let's talk positive running backs. Dalvin Cook. And again, this is a stat line that probably gets you at least in the conversation for studs most week. 20 rushes, 111 yards, and a score. Also had 5 catches for another 30 yards. That's not nothing. Great game. Alexander Madison and Kirk Cousins each found the end zone rushing. So what do you say? He was eating his cheese. Anyway, his cheese got eaten. It was nibbling away on his cheese a little bit. Great game for Cook. Vikings are 6-1. Obviously, he's a must start every week.
Indeed. Travis Etienne, maybe the biggest riser first week without James Robinson. How does it go? 24 carries, 156 yards, 1 touchdown. He played 79% of the snaps, saw 80% of the carries, 67% of the routes. Really, the only thing missing right now is the targets. Just 3 targets. So a very underwhelming receiving line. But we're talking about a guy that just put up 25 fantasy points. I'm not nitpicking it, and he has a great receiving profile. So to me, that's just like that last step for him to reach that elite stardom level running back. If we get those 7 to 8 target days added to this other type of workload, Etienne will be right alongside the not CMC feels lofty to say after a day like today, but he'll be knocking on the door of that top 5 running back 1 ceiling if those targets can go up now.
Another guy you and I and everybody in this neck of the woods loves, Ramondre Stevenson. 16 rushes, 71 yards to go along with 7 catches on 8 targets for another 72. Patriots really looked like that they were going to lose this game. And then Zach Wilson happened, I guess you would say. But anyway, Stevenson looked pretty good. He's playing the part of the bell cow. Hopefully that continues. Damian Harris is back, I believe. But anyway, he looked really good. Mac Jones, this is completely separate. Mac Jones, I texted at one point to the RSJ thread. He throws like my 7-year-old son, and my 7-year-old son's not like a prodigy athlete or anything like that.
Not a 7-year-old son you want to be throwing
he's not like
an
LeBron,
NFL quarterback. But yes, as you noted, Harris is back, and that is important to discuss. 49 snaps for Stevenson compared to 31 for Harris. They were on the field for a few together there. So that is a little bit of a concern. The fact that Harris ran 17 routes, he did only see 2 targets compared to 7 targets for Ramondre, who ran 25 routes. He's definitely getting the higher leverage usage, but Harris did get all the short yardage work as well today, the goal line and short yardage. They did sometimes rotate like who was in that drive, but something to keep in mind for sure. Jamal Williams, 10 carries, 53 yards, and doing what he does best, 2
Scoring.
touchdowns.
Right.
I think he now is tied for the NFL lead in rushing touchdowns, even after they've already had a bye week. That's how much goal line usage this guy's seeing, and why not? He's always good about it. He converts. It's like James Conner. Ian Hartitz, I keep coming back to that comparison he made in the preseason. It's perfect. He was like the number 2 running back on the team, but he's just a goal line hammer. And it was good to see the Lions just kind of back and peppering it. In his wake of scoring, DeAndre Swift, he got a touchdown too, but you just see it feels like there's a lot of meat on the bone always for him. 5 carries, 6 yards, gross. 5 catches and a touchdown on 5 targets, but not much yardage there either. So it's tough. It's good to see Swift back though. Again, with those 27 yards to the air. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. It's like clearly his ceiling is so capped. Swift is. If anything ever happened to Jamal, I wonder if he'd even get that goal line role, if they just make sure like Craig Reynolds gets it instead. But good to see him back, and he looked pretty explosive on a couple of his plays too. So.
Doesn't Jamal Williams lead the NFL in touchdowns?
Rushing touchdowns, yeah. I think he's either tied or single.
I think he's on top actually by himself, which is just bonkers.
Maybe after the second today, yeah.
Wonder what the odds on that were at the beginning of the year. Khalil Herbert slowly taking over the Bears' backfield, 16 rushes, 99 yards. I sung his praises a lot on the Wednesday show, as you did as well. He also had a touchdown in their loss to the Cowboys. This kind of was a slow burn. I actually saw a lot of this, and it really seemed like Montgomery was getting the bulk of the workload early. And then kind of as they started running Herbert, they were just like, geez, obviously we should keep running this guy. He and Montgomery had very similar carries, at least amounts, but Herbert had like twice as many yards. So there you go.
Exactly. And just like you said, the production keeps going to Herbert. They keep talking about the hot hand. I don't know when it's going to flip because we did see 54 plays go to Montgomery, just 20 snaps going to Khalil Herbert. Almost all the goal line work, short yardage work, 2-minute drill, all went to Montgomery as well. So we're not seeing Herbert get those high leverage touches, even though he's looking so much better than him. I do think it's going to keep flipping. He's still out there in a handful of leagues. So we're going to go over the early waiver wire in just a few minutes. I put Herbert at the top of that if he was somehow still out there in your leagues, not quite 50%. Miles Sanders just ho-hum, 9 carries, 78 yards and a score. Just the lead back, because you look at Kenneth Gainwell, 1 rush, 3 yards. Like, he's not involved at all. Boston Scott got like 4 carries too, but this is Miles Sanders' backfield. They didn't even need to use him much. So in closer games, we see even higher usage and higher snap shares. So solid day for Miles Sanders for sure.
We're into the meh category here. Raheem Mostert, 14 rushes for 64 yards, 1 reception for 3 yards, and the Dolphins win over the Lions. That's kind of the definition of a meh game.
Very meh, but it is important to note he saw 44 of the snaps of the 68 total, only 16 going to Chase Edmonds. So nice to see that, even though it doesn't look great counting-wise, fantasy points-wise, he still is the clear
This
leader.
is well established at this point. I mean, this is several weeks in the makings, right? I mean,
it's 4 straight weeks with more routes for Mostert, 20 this week compared to 9 for Edmonds. Like, that's the unexpected part of all this, is that he's running more routes, seeing more targets. And of course, the snap share now shifting to his favor, 60 to 70% wise. So yeah, definitely a good week to maybe try to buy low if people are like panicking over this mediocre performance. Dameon Pierce, another meh day. He did bail his day out with a touchdown receiving wise at the end, 3 catches, 16 yards, and a score through the air to go with just 35 yards on 15 carries. Very, very mediocre performance from him, but the team sold out to stop him. I'm just worried that this offense is going to get shittier and shittier, especially if they trade away Brandon Cooks. So maybe Pierce is a sell high right now if you can pull it off.
Both Denver running backs fall into the meh category. Now, they both scored, so if you started them each, like, you probably were okay with that. Melvin Gordon, 9 rushes, 29 yards, and a touchdown. Latavius Murray, 14 rushes, 46 yards, and a touchdown. Pretty lousy London game. Broncos, Jags, 2-5
What do you expect, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much exactly. It went pretty much the way we thought, and it was close. And I don't know. If you were in London and you were like, this is what I want to see, then okay, I guess you're happy.
If only we could have had the Panthers and Falcons in prime time instead, right?
Dude, that was awesome.
Ended up being a great game, seriously. But yeah, 34 snaps for Gordon, 27 to Murray. It's just Boone's out, so that does make it a little bit clearer. And they both did end up fine for your fantasy lamps because of the touchdowns. Who knows if that's going to be there every week on the worst red zone offense in the league. Another Mayday, Benjamin. I think he must be the most frustrating experience because there was the week where you had to play him, you smash start him. he got like 7.5 to 9, depending on your scoring. So you probably benched him last week. He has 21 points on your benches. And then you're like, okay, I have to have this guy when he's starting. And here's what he does for you. 9 carries, 22 yards, as well as 4 catches for 23 yards. So it's not like just complete and utter useless, but really nothing that you were hoping for after a 20-point day. He did get most of the work. If you look at it, 57 of the snaps compared to just 20 for Darrell Williams, all the goal line work, most of the short yardage in 2 minutes. So he got almost everything, but still just didn't do anything with it. And that's kind of what has always been the career. So you'll probably bench him next week, and he's probably going to have 25 points.
All right, let's go to negatives. We talked about this guy. We're going to say it again. Josh Jacobs, 43 yards rushing, 2 catches for 11 yards. This is the guy that was just bonkers off the chart recently. We were talking about how amazing he was. This seemed like a real opportunity to do something, and everybody on the Raiders laid an egg. So he's in good company or in bad company, depending on how you look at it. But anyway, it seems only fair that he would highlight our negatives this week.
Yeah, absolutely. He had 3 straight 30-point performances. Christian McCaffrey has never done that. Like, I think it's only 4 running backs. Scott Barrett was talking about it on his DFS show. Crazy to see that type of production, and then bam, have it come cratering out. And we saw Abdullah, 20 snaps compared to 32 for Josh Jacobs. All the third down work went to Amir Abdullah.
I can't even believe that guy's still in the NFL.
I can't either. 17 routes for Jacobs, 14 for Abdullah. That was what was propelling Jacobs to these huge days, is the getting the receiving work in addition to all of the carries. He still has all the early down work. There's no timeshare with him or Zamir White or anything like that. But to not have the receiving work is definitely going to cap him, and it would have made Jacobs a great sell high after those first 330 games in a row. Jets backfield, ew, disgusting. Michael Carter, 7 carries, 26 yards, 4 receptions for 35, so serviceable, okay. James Robinson, 5 carries, 17, just to kind of be involved. But the worst part was Ty Johnson ended up rotating in as the third down back. Now, granted, we did see this when they had Breece Hall. There's one game where we saw like 3 running backs, including Ty Johnson, involved and annoying, but Breece Hall was talented enough to then erase him completely. I don't know that Carter and Robinson are going to completely erase Ty Johnson, which just makes this it's a bad offense. So three-way split in a bad offense. You guys don't need me to spell out why. That's not something you want to be involved in.
If I told you that the Jets were they were 5-2, right? If I told you that the Jets were gonna be like, say, 6-8 in like 6 or 7 weeks, would you think that was crazy?
I do think their defense is pretty good. So I would be surprised if they only win one more game in the next 7 or 8. But would I be stunned like completely? No, not at all.
I think the bottom might be about to fall out here.
It could. It really could.
All right, let's talk. Speaking of disgusting running back situations, Najee Harris, who at last check was like the RB 26 or something on the season. He and Jaylen Warren splitting some nice backfield work. Harris, 8 carries, 32 yards to go along with 6 catches, 26 yards. It's a big thing, man. Even when he's getting volume, it's like he just doesn't average anything good, catching or running. He's like a 3-yard rush guy or like a 3 or 4 yard a catch guy. So, okay, he's getting all this volume, but whatever. Warren, 6 rushes for 40 yards. That's 8.3 a carry. That's pretty good. 3 catches, 25 yards. That's also 8.3 a carry. So, I mean, got a little less work, did more with the work that he got. I mean, they're both kind of small sample sizes. I mean, the Steelers are a train wreck, man. I don't want any part of this.
Right. The real big takeaway is Najee used to be the bell cow that nobody would ever sub onto the field, and that's what made him so valuable. Plus, he had a little bit more juice. He is just so inefficient after these injuries in the preseason. He looks like a slug out there. So, man, not pretty performance for him. Jaylen Warren continues to look like the better guy. In fact, he played 7 of the 9 third down snaps, too. So we got a carved-out role, it seems like, for Warren here. So in addition to having that handcuff upside, really like him as a stash because there could be some standalone benefits to come from here if his workload keeps going up. Jonathan Taylor, definitely a underwhelming day and probably the worst pick in fantasy this year. 16, I mean, there's definitely worse, but in terms of being number 1 overall.
I don't know. Barring injury, do you think he's the worst?
I mean, he was hurt too, so that's part of why it sucked. But yeah, he's up there. It's bad. 16 carries, 78 yards. Of course, Nyheim Hines gets the score. Picked up an ankle injury. He did return to the game, but it's just a really, really frustrating situation. And then I just wanted to mention a couple of the 4 o'clock games too.
Go ahead.
Looking at the scores here. Commanders, very, very sketchy situation for Brian Robinson. They were trailing for most of this game, and Brian Robinson, I don't have the final snaps right now, but saw 8 carries, 20 yards, and that was it. Gibson, meanwhile, saw his work increase, 14 total touches. The best of the work came through the receiving game, 7 catches, 58 yards, and a touchdown. But just watching on Reds, I don't have the final snap counts, like I said. It just seemed like Gibson was in there far more often than Brian Robinson. And, of course, J.D. McKissick mixed in for 3 catches and 14 yards. But Gibson seems like he's coming out of this one with a stock up. Robinson, a stock down. The Rams as well, Truth. This was really disconcerting for anybody having Henderson. I saw a question right at the top from Magic Mike about, should I drop Henderson? Absolutely. I think you can drop him at this point. 4 carries, 16 yards. Clearly fell behind Ronnie fucking Rivers, whoever that is. I did not make this up. It's not a create a player in Madden. Ronnie Rivers is an actual human being who I will give Matthew Berry a little credit. He actually called it that this guy was going to lead the backfield today. He did. He had 8 carries for 21 yards, so it wasn't anything special.
That's what passes for leading the backfield these days.
Yeah, and four catches for 15, just 2 catches for 14 yards for Darrell Henderson. So a just awful performance. The backfield's really just sucked all year. So, yes, I absolutely think Henderson is droppable.
Outside of Cooper Kupp, what has not sucked for the Rams this year?
Yeah, that's a good point. Allen Robinson, bad, but looked actually kind of more at home.
Had 1 or 2 decent plays.
Saw a couple decent plays, at least involved in the offense. But, yeah, again, Henderson, cuttable. If he can't beat out Ronnie Rivers. And it's just if you have Kyron Williams stashed right now, and if you don't, go sprint, go get him. Clearly, they need some kind of spark, and there's no guarantee he provides it. But this was a just disgusting performance overall from this backfield.
Wide receivers, positives. These guys just keep plugging along, don't they? Tyreek Hill just doing what Tyreek Hill does. 12 catches on 14 targets, $188. Jaylen Waddle, 8 catches on 9 targets, 106 and 2 touchdowns. Come on, man.
The best duo in the league. It's easy to say. The offense is so concentrated on them too, which makes it such an easy go-to stack each and every week for DFS. Man, these 2 guys are just studs. I don't know how anybody tries to defend this team. And I like Mike McDaniels, a great play caller, and Tua can get them the rock. DJ Moore, another great day. 11 targets, 6 catches, 152 and a touchdown. He's had 19 and 30 points now in games with since the trades of Robbie Anderson and Christian McCaffrey. Just an absolute beast. Huge touchdown there towards the end of the game. Definitely made a couple boneheaded passion moments there. But great to see DJ Moore. I know we're typically lower on him, but now PJ Walker is no one else to go to. And we've never been low on the player. We've always been low on the role and the usage. This is what, if you told me he's going to get 11 targets here on out, I'd have no problem ranking him as an every week high-end wide receiver too.
Who would have thought PJ Walker was the secret sauce?
The skeleton key, baby. PJ Walker, XFL legend. Love PJ Walker.
DeAndre Hopkins. Ho-hum, 12 catches on 13 targets. The one he didn't catch, I feel like was a drop. I feel like it was one he absolutely should have had, and he was mad about. 159 yards.
Touchdown catch, though. My God,
that was vintage. We've seen him do that a bunch. Not this year necessarily, but that's why we fell in love with this guy. He had the best hands in the NFL. Maybe he still does. I don't know. Good. 12 out of 13 catches. That's pretty good. Great game for DeAndre Hopkins.
And the big thing, too, a lot of people worried after some inefficient performances last year. He had fallen off the cliff. He had gotten too old.
He's really good, man.
Some of the speculation, I guess, is kind of fair. 0 100-yard games last year, but now he's back 200-yard games in 2 games right now when he went 0 for 10 last year in terms of 100-yard games. He's a beast. He played every single snap. He's getting a ton of work in the slot. That's the big thing is they're now moving him into the slot for about half the snaps where he's never played before. Obviously, he's moved around. He's capable of that. But at that level, around 50% level, they recognize there might be some limitations to his ability to stretch the field now. They're turning him into a target hog. This might be the best Hopkins season we've seen in a long time if they keep using him this way. His teammate, Rondale Moore, not a bad day. We'll talk about him. We'll revisit him in the waiver wire section. But he saw 8 targets, hauled in 7 of them for 92 yards and a touchdown. Just overall, the offense seemed to be moving at a better clip. They seem to be rounding into form now with Hopkins back. So good to see all around there. Be intriguing to see what they do when Marquise Brown is back too.
CeeDee Lamb looked like CeeDee Lamb. 5 catches, 7 targets, 77 yards, and a touchdown coming from Dak Prescott in their easy win over the Bears. He was out there for the most snaps. He and Michael Gallup both also, they ran 26 routes each. pacing the Cowboys. He was targeted the most times. He also got a random carry thrown in there. He's the wide receiver one on this team.
Yeah, and the big thing you said there, he did it with Dak. We hadn't seen that yet this year. We don't have to panic now. He can actually perform with Dak. Terry McLaurin, 6 catches on 8 targets. Huge one there at the end of the game to ultimately finish 113 yards. He has now seen 25% target share or higher in back-to-back weeks with his boy Taylor Heineke back. Had 41% of the receiving yards today for Washington. So Terry McLaurin seems right back into that quality wide receiver 2 radar now that Taylor Heineke's behind center.
Jacoby Myers was the clear number one guy for Mac Jones, whose throwing I criticized earlier in the podcast. But Myers was targeted 12 times, caught 9 of them for 60 yards and a touchdown in a game where offense was at a premium. I mean, it was not easy to come by for anyone. So that's a pretty big receiving week from a guy getting thrown to by Mac Jones.
Absolutely. Jerry Jeudy, 6 catches, 63 yards and a touchdown. Rumor of trade speculation. So maybe he'll get out of this hellhole of an offense, but hey, good to see him have back-to-back pretty good weeks. And if he can't escape, we could probably trust him as a wide receiver 3 now moving forward, unlike his teammate Cortland Sutton we'll talk about later.
We will in a minute. Garrett Wilson on the Jets, one of the lone bright spots, 6 catches on 7 targets for $115 in a game where the Jets offense did not do much at all past like the second quarter.
Yeah, and we have some other receivers to talk about in the fallers, including Eli Moore, the biggest maybe faller. If he can't escape the situation this year through trade, oh, it's ugly. Chris Olave, his first real May day of the season. Chris caught 5 catches on 7 targets, 52 yards. With no Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry, we've just become accustomed to this guy putting up 100 yards almost like you can print it. But nah, not this time, unfortunately. Hopefully a better game's in store.
Devontae Smith, he might be a good buy low candidate. I'm not sure this game actually falls into the Matt category. This is either nothing or just bad. Five catches on 8 targets, only 23 yards. I mean, if you're playing half-point PPR, that's not even 5 fantasy points. I mean, of course, when A.J. Brown is sucking everything up, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. It's too bad. They'll keep going up and down. It's like you mentioned at the top. They get out to such big leads because of how good they are. They ultimately have to take their pedal off the metal. So, yeah, brutal there. Deontay Johnson continues to lead the team in targets, continues to do very, very little with them. 5 catches, 35 yards. The ceiling just doesn't exist right now with Kenny Pickett and him just not ever going deep. Man, it's ugly. It's ugly.
Darnell Mooney, I mean, he's left a lot to be desired this year. Obviously, some of that field still coming into his own as a passer. We'll see if he gets there. He was targeted 5 times today, caught all 5 of them, got 70 yards, including a nice 36-yard catch late in the game. I'd say it's a meh day, but maybe encouraging.
Yeah, 50 or more yards in 5 straight. Seems to be at least rounding into that I can trust him every week type of form because Justin Fields continues to rise as well. Getting into the negatives, we got to lead off with Elijah Moore.
We have to.
I just don't understand how the coach says we cannot trade Elijah Moore and then decides to play him at the 5th fewest snaps. Outplayed by Jeff Smith, by Braxton Berrios, by Denzel Mims. What is going on? So clearly he was benched even without Corey Davis in the lineup today. He is complete and utter goose egg of a day. Not even a target. 0 targets. I was going to say 1 target. No. Jeff Smith, Braxton Berrios out targeting him on the day. Just an awful situation. So hopefully in these next couple days, he gets traded. If not, I think you cut Elijah Moore immediately. There's no reason to hang on to this guy.
Real quick, we're about to rattle off some really bad receiver lines. Cortland Sutton in London, going across the pond to show his skills. Targeted 4 times, caught 1 of them, 13 yards. Crappy.
Devontae Adams, 1 catch, 5 targets, 3 yards. Crappy.
I'm doubling down on him for dud of the week, by the way.
Yeah.
And his core mate, Hunter Renfrow, 1 catch, 6 yards. Crappy.
George Pickens, no catching, 3 targets. Real bad.
Josh Reynolds, 2 catches on 6 targets for 14. Pretty terrible.
And he had one go right off his face.
Right.
Yeah, brutal. Robbie Anderson, no catches, 3 targets. Clearly well behind. Even AJ Green now in the pecking order. Some bad stuff there.
Yeah, let's move on to tight ends and some positive things. And I'm rolling my eyes, or whatever the hell that was. Kyle Pitts, 5 catches, 80 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, it's definitely his best game of the season.
Yeah, it really only happens when they trail, and it's still hit or miss whether they're going to throw or not when they trail. 71 of his 80 receiving yards did come when the game was tied or they were playing from behind. They also have one of the easiest schedules remaining here. So if they get leads, I think it's going to go right back to that brutal form. So if you can sell Pitts on the name value on this performance, I think this is a good week to do that. Dalton Schultz, ho-hum, 7 targets, 6 catches, 74 yards. Just like when Dak is back, that's his boy. You can always depend on a good 5 to 8 catches, 60 to 80 yards. Just bank on it from Schultz from here on out.
Zach Ertz, this is a mad performance. He's been pretty reliable this year. He was looking pretty rough, but he did end up scoring 4 catches on 5 targets, 34 yards, and a touchdown. So ended up for a tight end being a decent fantasy day. Not super, didn't love what I saw out there, but the touchdown made it all worthwhile.
It really bailed him out. Honestly, as somebody who has him, it was a very scary day. He had a ton of that stuff in garbage time. Hopkins is just the monster here. So I really think Ertz, another guy that, as you said, he has had a good year so far. If you can trade him, get a little value for Zach Ertz, I would be selling him as hard as I could. On the negative front, 2 guys that might not even be on your team, so I'll just say them quick. Juwan Johnson, 2 catches, 14 yards. Irv Smith, get rid of him at this point. No reason to hold on to this guy. Playing nearly equal snaps with Johnny fucking Munt, who gets the touchdown today. Hasn't had more than 42 receiving yards in a game this season. 60% player in an offense that doesn't really throw it all that often. With Justin Jefferson there, no need for him.
Let's talk injuries, and I hated to see this one. Cooper Kupp injured on the last play of the game. There's no reason he should have been in the game anyway. They were down, I want to say 17, and there was like a minute to go. Looked like he got rolled up on ankle. He did walk off the field under his own power. You never know how that's going to end up, though. Just a dumb call by the coach, and you hate to see it. I mean, the football is a lot more fun when Cooper Kupp's playing.
Yeah, let's hope this one is not a long-term thing. McVay already saying how much he regrets doing it. No shit. Really, really boneheaded play if you were just going to run the clock out anyways the next one. Mark Ingram exited week 8 against the Raiders. Did not return with that knee injury. Didn't have a rushing attempt anyways. It looked like Kamara was going to be dominating the workload, but this certainly anyways locked that into that monster day we had Kamara see. Maybe it was because Mark Ingram was out, but I just think Kamara was going to go crazy either way.
Devontae Parker went into the medical tent in the Patriots game against the Jets. He went in there, then he went back to the locker room. This happened on the first offensive drive of the game. He did not come back. He was immediately downgraded to out. We don't know what's going to happen moving forward, but we do know it's a knee injury.
Absolutely. We did see Tyquan Thornton ran 60 routes. 60 snaps, 37 routes, became a near every snap player there, as well as Kendrick Bourne too in that absence. So if this is a lengthy absence for Devontae, Tyquan Thornton, we continue to talk about as a waiver target, good player to keep note of. And last, and certainly most important, I guess, is Jonathan Taylor. He did end up returning though. So it wasn't the end of the world, but he had an ankle injury, just kind of adding to the frustration and anger of the season for him so far.
All right, let's get into waiver wire, guys. Rondale Moore, only 35% rostered. 7 catches on 8 targets for 92 and a touchdown, like we talked earlier. You could do a lot worse than that if you're looking to fill a receiver gap. I may be going after him this week, just to give you an example.
I think you absolutely should be. I think a lot of people cut him after the useless Thursday Night Football where they started him. They were angry. They watched him on primetime do nothing. But this team clearly wants to get the ball to him. 77 of the 78 snaps, 52 route runs, 8 targets, only trailing DeAndre Hopkins. But great to see him getting re-involved as well with 2 carries. So versatile talent. Very explosive. You can see the ball when he had the ball. It really pops when he has it. So yeah, I'm really big fan of Rondale Moore. So I lost my place here.
I've been there.
Big fan of Justin Fields, 41% rostered right now, 26 fantasy points, a season high. He had 8 rush attempts, 60 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. They're dialing him up in the red zone a lot, and he just always nice for the defense, looking great. 2 touchdowns. This now marks 4 straight weeks. He's been a top 12 quarterback. Seems to really be rounding into form and getting comfortable just in time for his 3 softest matchups of the year. 3 straight bottom 5 defenses he's facing. Love to see it for Justin Fields. I think that's Miami next week, 5th most points allowed. Detroit, the 4th most, and Atlanta, the 2nd most. Juicy slate of games coming up. Would be throwing the hammer down to get this guy if I was a quarterback needy team.
We talked about Jaylen Warren earlier, so a lot of this is probably going to be a little repetitive. He's only 5% owned. He's obviously now sharing the backfield with Najee. He's not in danger of taking this backfield over unless Najee gets injured. But, he is getting carries. He is a 3rd down guy, it seems. So, if you need to fill a hole for a week or maybe take a stab at something moving forward, might not be the worst guy you could pick up. Like I said, he's not going to be a bell cow or anything, but he is getting touches now.
If injury strikes, though, we do know Mike Tomlin loves riding his bell cows typically. I think this is a top 3 handcuff with some standalone upside should he maintain that third down role. 7 of the 9 third down snaps, really eating into Harris's workload here. And why not? He's outperformed in 50 yards, 8.3 yards a carry on his 6 attempts, compared to just 32 yards for Najee on 8. Also had 25 yards on just his 3 catches, compared to just 26 yards on 6 catches for Najee. Terrace Marshall, 1% rostered, a guy you can continue to look at. 9 targets, pretty solid workload. Had 4 catches, 87 yards. Not a bad 10.7 points, but looked really explosive after the catch. Nearly scored on that 39-yard strike that did lead to Donta Foreman getting a pound-in opportunity. But encouraging performance for a guy in an offense that has dire need for weapons to emerge here. So solid day for Terrace Marshall.
Latavius Murray is 40% owned. We said he rushed 14 times for 46 yards and a score in London. I mean, the Broncos offense, just in general, I'm not particularly interested in. But, he's getting more and more touches. They don't trust Gordon. You get the impression, like you said the other time we recorded, get the impression the coaching staff does not like Melvin Gordon particularly. So, if they're going to rush the ball, it's probably going to be with Murray moving forward, I think.
Yeah, 14 carries to 9 for Melvin Gordon, and he's been the goal line back in back-to-back weeks here with no Mike Boone. I think he's a usable flex play type of guy.
Usable.
Low ceiling, but it's better that you're going to get like 6 to 11, and that's about it. But sometimes that's what you need given the matchups. On the Broncos, though, that I am pretty intrigued by is Greg Dulcich. 5 targets, 4 catches, 87 yards. He's 42% rostered. This is now 3 straight weeks. He's only been on an NFL field for 3 weeks. He's been a top 12 tight end for all 3 of them. He looks really good, smooth athlete. Was labeled as a big body, like wide out type of tight end that was not known for his blocking. That's not why he's on the field right now, leading the team in tight end snaps, leading the team in receiving yards now 2 of his 3 weeks. This guy's solid. I really, really like Dulcich. You need a tight end. That 20% target rate is pretty damn solid. Really, really like Greg Dulcich here.
Caleb Huntley, 4% owned. He actually rushed 16 times for 91 yards in the Falcons' Week 8 overtime win over the Panthers. He was splitting carries pretty much down the middle with Tyler Algier. A lot of these backfields are just 50-50 messes right now, huh?
Yeah, and then Cordarrelle Patterson's going to be coming back to this one and make it nasty. So that's why you're not going out there and blowing a ton of money on Huntley. But we have at least one more week till Patterson returns, so Huntley could be that little stopgap option when they have tight games like they did with the Panthers today. He's going to see about 12 to 15 carries, and there's a spot for that in most fantasy leagues. So could be checked out. I'd prefer Algier, who's 54% rostered, so he didn't make the cutoff here, but he did get cut by a bunch of leagues with the impending Cordarrelle Patterson activation. He's more involved as a receiver. Just overall, the better, seems a little more explosive. Honestly, both these guys are getting it done, though, in Patterson's absence on a team that likes to run it. Both worth looks if you need a fly-in, fill-in Hail Mary here. The other type of ads we wanted to talk about were some trade deadline speculations. So Elijah Moore, a lot of people are going to cut him based on how frustrated they are. I would hold if you have him. He's 40% rostered right now. If he gets traded to, say, the Packers, maybe the Chiefs. I know they traded for Tony, so probably unlikely. Rams are in the market for receivers right now, though, too, especially if something does happen to Kupp and he has to miss a few weeks. Elijah Moore, I think, is still an insane talent. Would love to see him in a riper situation, so I'm holding on to him wherever I have him. And Dearness Johnson, 1% rostered. It seems likelier by the day that Kareem Hunt's going to get traded. We've seen how good Johnson is.
We love Johnson.
We are such a Johnson site. So if and when Hunt gets traded, I think Johnson's going to be a very, very popular pickup. Get ahead of it. Monday Night Football, you can still pick this guy up now. You have some bench trash you want to cut. I think he's a great one.
Tyler Conklin, only 11% owned still, which is a little surprising. 6 catches on 10 targets, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, if you're looking for a tight end, there's not very many good ones out there. Why not?
Exactly. And the big thing was Uzomah had been a little bit more involved for the last couple of weeks. Conklin really took that role back over. He was killing it with Joe Flacco. He was the tight end 3 for the first 3 weeks, had disappeared since Wilson took over, but good to see him reemerge as a potential option at your tight end position, as is Evan Ingram, 43% rostered. Saw 6 targets, hauled in 4 of them for 55 yards. The big difference this week, he scored. And so he was already the tight end 16 with no touchdowns on the season. He had one of the highest target shares, was top 10 among tight ends with targets and target share. So now we get this guy finding the end zone, could be a solid tight end, low-end tight end one moving forward.
You've been talking up Darius Slayton real quick. His last 3 weeks, I believe, 5 catches, 66 yards this week. Targeted 6 times, 3 catches, 58 yards, and a score last week. And then the week before, 6 catches on 7 targets, 79 yards. I'm not sure if that's the last 3 or if that's 3 of his last 4. But the point is he's had viable outings 3 of the last 4 times. Maybe take a stab at Darius Slayton.
I know everybody thinks it's Wandale that's leading this team. I was included in that. It does seem like Slayton might actually be the most dependable wideout option. And now with Tony gone, you can kind of lock Slayton alongside Wandale for a low volume gross attack, but intriguing nonetheless. And we want to mention Andy Dalton just one more time.
Sure.
Didn't light the world on fire, but 17 fantasy points, looked real solid and capable. This offense likes to chuck. Their defense typically is not very good so far this year. So I do think we're going to see more situations like 2 weeks ago where Andy Dalton was the quarterback 2 in fantasy with over 30 fantasy points, 360 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So we know he has the shootout ceiling potential as well as a nice baked-in floor of about 15 to 17 points minimum. I like Dalton. I think he takes this job the rest of the year and can be a low-end, not low-end QB1. I'll say like a mediocre QB2, but super flex leagues and bye week fill-ins, that has a place for sure.
All right, let's hit the mailbag real quick. I got maybe 10, 12 minutes, so let's roll through this.
I have to piss pretty bad, so yeah, we'll
All
go
right,
quick.
okay. I like it when you're motivated. Magic Mike starting things off. Love your work, gents. Thanks, Mike. Should I drop Henderson to stash James Cook tonight, then drop him for Perrine if Singletary gets through the game? Thanks for your help, fellas. Yeah, the Wolf already said Henderson's a viable drop.
Yeah, I saw Magic Mike's comment. I just wanted to hit that one more time. I think absolutely. And if you didn't already drop Henderson for Cook tonight, which I like that tryout, intriguing to always see the bye week rookie bump. Maybe that happens for Cook tonight. But even if you missed that, I do think stashing Johnson, Perrine, there's a lot of options for Monday night. Josh Palmer's also out there in a lot of leagues, and I know he won't play tomorrow, but he's a guy with Mike Williams off on the IR for the next 4 weeks. Could get some nice bumps for Palmer. Pick him up before he closes on waivers. Wouldn't be too bad. I do see our Colin. We got to get our guy in here. Mr. Campanelli, what's going on, brother?
Wolf, I should have listened to you today. In my Superflex league, I started Malik Willis.
Oh, no.
He laid a freaking mallet on my team. However, because of you, with Tony Pollard and everything, I was saved. I'm up 102 points, but he has Burrow, Rodgers, and Chubb left.
Oh,
Rodgers is going to get like 4.
Yeah, he's the least scary option there.
You mushed an entire game, and that was the best game we've seen in London in like 20 years.
What are you talking about? They were awful.
They put up 37 points. That's the most points we've seen in London since, Christopher Columbus founded America.
I can't confirm or deny that, but it was I thought a pretty terrible performance between 2 pretty terrible teams. Now it was competitively bad.
Yes.
I mean, it was close, but I don't know. I'm not willing to concede that was a bad mush.
Indeed.
I will conduct research to find out if that was the highest scoring London game we've had.
All right, that's fair.
I love it. But David, before we let you go, did want to say happy birthday, my guy. I know you're one of the most loyal fans we have. It's so good to have guys like you supporting us. You're the reason we do this type of stuff. So thanks again and happy birthday, my guy. Hope you have a great day. Keep putting them back. We'll put one back for you later tonight too.
Will do. Have a good one.
Cheers. See you, David.
I can't. I'm not putting one back for another 24 days, Wolf.
I know.
I'm 3 weeks in now.
Good for you, man. Keep it going.
Yeah.
Very, very deep comment here from Ryan Hegarty.
I love this stuff. Daniel Jones sucks ass. Yeah.
Yeah, about right. I mean, you can use the call-in function to whine as well. That's fine. Remember the whine line? We used to love that. We got to get the whine line going again. What's good, Denny Jennings? Did you see CJ's outfit on today's morning show?
Briefly.
He had that onesie on. It was very frightening and sickening. But he did give everybody a turn at the end of the show, and Denny Jennings definitely put the hard eyes out for him. Beautiful performance.
He should have had one of those, you know how Flintstone had one of those onesies, but he also had like a necktie on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a Flintstone one, though. It was just like a woman's leopardy. It's weird. It's very unsettling, but We did it.
It was unsettling. It's not the first time we've been
Drew our
unsettled.
lowest audience today. I wonder why.
This has been a small crowd today too. I don't know. Maybe people are just tired.
Yeah.
Chris Thomason, 7-1 Wolf. I played against Kamara and Pollard. Ouch. Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it. But man, 7-1 still a very, very respectable start to the year. Let's keep it rolling. Now you know how it is in even the real life football. You get the loss off your chest. You can kind of breathe easier here.
Currently ahead 74.2 to 46.1. So 28-ish lead. I got Aaron Jones and Tyler Bass playing, but he has Joe Burrow and Amari Cooper. You think I can pull it off?
I think you're in pretty good shape. I mean, Jones obviously tonight will determine a lot. And I'm really hoping for a huge Bass night. I need it. So I think you're in pretty good shape here. Burrow could obviously just go completely nuclear the way he's been doing the last couple of weeks, and then you're fucked. But I'd set this at 55U, I'd say. What do you think, Truth? 55%?
I'd give him about 60, actually.
All right, nice.
Broderick, thanks for the advice. Came in clutch this week. You're welcome. I don't know what advice the Wolf gave you, but he's good for some of that.
I forget what it was, but I know you super chatted us, Broderick. So I always want to get it right for everybody, but especially those that are willing to super chat us. So, man, I'm really happy for that. Glad to hear it.
We are halfway through the first quarter. Packers Bills. It is scoreless. Sarah Riley down 11 points against a Kamara owner. Should I start Gabe Davis or hold out for T. Higgins PPR? I mean, it's too late.
We missed the Gabe Davis one. I would have gone T. Higgins though myself. No Jamar Chase. You know how much I love the daddy, but no, I'm going to go T. Higgins there.
I would have too, although it would have hurt me to do it. Y2J20 on the boy Wandale did me dirty.
I know. I started him too. I was so fucking pumped about him too. But damn.
Tunes is up 100 to 94. Basically, I have Burrow and Higgins tomorrow. He has Singletary, McKenzie, and Rodgers tonight. Who wins? I like you.
Oh yeah, give me Burrow and Higgins all day. Burrow, Higgins in a lead compared to those weapons. Oh yeah, Tunes. Yeah, I feel great about your spot.
Played Pitts in 2 of my 4 leagues. We're lucky.
Good, lucky you, man.
You're smart, Kyle. My dumbass played Freiermuth and benched Pitts. Hey,
I would have done the same.
Actually, so I was going to bench Pitts. I picked up Hayden Hurst, and then I had so many injuries that I actually had to play Pitts in the flex. And it worked out okay.
There we go.
Yeah,
there we
Wandale, where'd all the targets go? Right.
I have no idea, Matt. I'm pissed about it.
I love this next comment.
Darius Slayton, maybe the number one. I will not. I'm going to keep probably holding on to Rondale Moore, but I will not. Rondale Robinson, rather. I won't be starting him anytime soon, though. That was scary as hell.
Daniel Hallen, JT is no longer startable. Wow. His volume does not translate into points. That's a hot take.
Hot take indeed. But, man, I can't bench him, right? I don't know.
No,
it depends on the league size. But, yeah, that's tough to do.
But I feel your pain, dude. This is the week we've waited for. And if you go on to the next one, he had Hopkins, Cook, and Henry. So, yeah, okay. That's cool.
That's
and honestly, as good as that is, there's people that had better ones than that. I mean, Henry.
That's damn good.
Yeah, they're good ones. CNW White Massey, Brian Robinson has not impressed me at all, but I've been saying all year that Deontay Foreman is really good. I'm glad to see him finally get an opportunity. Yeah, me too.
I'm with you there too. Robinson has looked very, very plotterish. I thought Foreman really popped. Like, he looked awesome. My brother, he was joking. It's like, is that Dalvin Cook but bigger out there? Because he was just zigging and zagging up there. The announcer was like, it looks like Derrick Henry. I was like, oh, shut up. And then you watch a couple runs, like, I mean, it's not Derrick Henry, but this guy really can ball. I'm with you. Foreman's a player. I really like that guy.
CMC dominated for me this week. Brown Robinson not looking so great. I may try to trade him away this week. Wouldn't blame you.
If somebody's going to buy him, I'm in. He did not look good, and it's definitely a game flow role that, not great. Like, the guy that needs the team to be leading on a bad offense, I don't know. Not a good buy, in my opinion. Yeah, I'd be trying to sell if I could possibly do it.
Everett, Pacheco, and Woods for Boyd. Should he take it?
Woods is useless. I don't even know why he's on your roster. Yeah. If you desperately need a tight end, it's not bad, but I'm really intrigued by what Boyd might do without Jamar Chase for however long that is. I think he's going to be a very, very viable wide receiver too. So I don't know. Pacheco and Everett don't necessarily move the needle unless you really, really need a tight end.
Wolf, I got 5 minutes. Rapid fire. Go ahead.
All righty. How is Ty Conklin tight end 1 this week? I don't know how these freaking things happen, man. It is such a wild NFL, isn't it, Matt? Tyler Conklin, the top of the position. Glad to see McLaurin. He really did. Tyler definitely is a huge upgrade. McLaurin's definitely been one of the biggest risers these last 2 weeks with the quarterback change. Team went absolutely off. Hurts, Pollard, Brown, CMC, Mixon to go with 202 points. That is incredible, Apex. So you're going to go for 250. I mean, put your lineup into DraftKings. You might be the Millie Maker winner right there, Apex. Great stuff. 221. Man, this is one of those weeks where there are just some fantasy bombs going off. It's just wild. 221. My God.
Yeah, I was the top team in both of my leagues, which has not happened all year for me any week. And I was the top in both, but I didn't approach those numbers. I was like 150, 160, something like that.
Insane stuff. And it's great when you face Kamara and still come out, because there's a lot of leagues where you just run into that buzzsaw and you're screwed. But this week definitely had a couple of those, like I said, haymaker after haymaker, alternating blows with teams. Good stuff. All 4 losses against the highest score of the week. That's brutal, Apex. Man, tough fantasy God's luck, but you're doing all right there.
Buffalo at the 1 yard line right now, by the way.
Bills are?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Let me know if they score.
I will.
Is Marquise Brown worth stashing? I think so, especially if you have the IR spot. That's a no-brainer. Really depends. 14-man, though, I would definitely be holding on to him if you have a good record and can sustain the blow. Sorry, guys, we're moving through these quick. We all want to watch the games. You know what? I think we're just going to cut it through. There's a lot of good interaction.
Hold on. Take this one.
Oh, we did get a super chat, so let's make sure to recognize that.
What wide receiver could I get if I traded Mark Andrews? That's tough to say, man.
It's tough to say. I mean, he's, I would say, the equivalent of like a wide receiver 1. Yeah, I have him ranked in my top 20 overall. So we're talking, AJ Brown would probably be tough to pull off right now after that huge day. The other thing too, though, is Mark Andrews is dealing with an injury. So it's going to be tough to move him right now. He's probably going to sit next week. Then he's got his bye week. So I don't know that you're going to get fair value for him, even though I think he's probably worth a low-end wide receiver 1. I doubt you're going to get more for Mark Andrews than a high-end wide receiver 2, in which case I probably wouldn't do it because the edge at tight end is so great. I don't know that you're going to get a fair price for Andrews after a couple duds in a row, now banged up, now the bye. I just don't think you're going to get a fair price, so I probably wouldn't be out there moving him, but I think a fair price would be right around a low-end wide receiver 1.
Josh Allen, 1 yard pass to Dawson Knox, by the way.
Hey, good stuff. Good to see Dawson Knox kind of emerging as a good option again. Good stuff. All righty, guys. And yeah, as you say, Michael, hold him unless, again, you could pull it off. I don't know who your backup tight end is, but it's going to be tough to do that.
I'd hold him.
And we have looked into Discords. We don't know much about it, Y2J, but shoot me a DM on Twitter if you have any interest in helping run it and things like that. We would love to grow a Discord. I know it's popping on a platform right now. Good stuff. You guys are awesome. Great chat. And it's great to see all you guys interacting with each other. I don't mean to skip any questions and whatnot we got here, but we are humans who want to watch the games too. So we're going to cut the questions there. Thank you again so much for being here, Wolfpack, for our recap show. I'll be back with your waiver wire on Tuesday, a little more in-depth than what we do tonight on that waiver wire stuff. So until then, world full of fancy sheep. Be those wolves, guys. Later.